This video is sponsored by Professional Photographers of America. Today, we'll be talking about all of my camera bodies because that's your favorite subject, and I realized I have some new pieces of gear and I would like to share them with you. We're going to start from my smallest camera, and that is the RX100V. This little guy, I originally bought it because I took it on a trip to Thailand, and here's why. First of all, super small, obviously super portable, but it really packs a punch. It shoots 4K, 30 frames, and honestly, after our last trip to Thailand, it kind of just sat on a shelf for a while, and because I started getting some bigger, more heavy-duty camera bodies, I kind of forgot about this guy. When we're on these tourism board trips, we're trying to capture everything about a location, and that includes the food. And we don't want to be carrying a big camera like this out to dinner because one, it attracts a lot of attention to ourselves that we don't really want. So we bring this because it looks a little bit more like an amateur camera. So if this is something, if you want to be discreet in whatever your job is as a photographer or videographer, this might be a good purchase for you. The focal length of this guy, let me just turn it on. It's a 24-70 lens. You can zoom in and out. Super easy, very intuitive. Reminds you of the first camera you probably ever bought. And it does go down to f1.8. So when we were taking pictures of our food, it actually looks surprisingly good. And I'll throw some pictures up now of what that looks like. It's cute, it's little. Do I use it all the time? No, but it does come in handy. Next purchase, and this was my workhorse when I started YouTube, was the A7 III because it's a great camera for both photo and video. It has 24.2 megapixels. You know, it's gonna be decent in low light, good in low light, but not as amazing as, of course, the A7S III, which we'll talk about in a second. It shoots 4K at 24 frames per second. It shoots 120 frames per second at 1080p. It's a good workhorse. Again, there are some better options for video, but if you want something that does a good job at both, this is the one you want. There was really no reason for me to sell this camera. This is actually Josh's. It's not in my current kit, and here is why. I did sell my A7 III because the A7S III came out, and it was just the video king, queen, goddess that I was looking for. And it was very expensive. Here's the reason why the A7S III is my new YouTube workhorse, my child. A lot of people, when this came out, were calling this the perfect camera, or a lot of people said it was almost the perfect camera. But here's the thing. The only downside, quote unquote, was the megapixels. So it has 12 megapixels. So that makes it really good in low light. Another huge selling point was on the body, the flippy screen, and of course that it shoots 4K, 120 frames per second, 10-bit 422. It was very expensive, but it was also worth every penny. And I remember the day it came out, like within the hour, Chris and I both purchased one each. But then I kind of realized there are some better cameras out there specifically for photo. So maybe it makes more sense for me to have one video workhorse and one photo workhorse. And that's kind of where I ended up finding this lovely gent who is selling the A7R IV. Also, I always say as a joke, I say très cher, very expensive purchase. So because of that, I ended up selling my A7 III. So then I was kind of floating around with my A7R IV, which by the way has 61 megapixels. So the benefits of that, if you aren't aware, is you can crop in as much as your beautiful heart desires. However, if you're shooting raw, or even if you're shooting compressed raw, those files are massive. They are huge. And we were in Cape Breton. Again, this is on our recent trip to Cape Breton. And we were taking pictures of, what are they called? I wanted to say penguins. Pelicans? Puffins. We were taking pictures of puffins, and they're obviously really fast, evasive birds, and we wanted them to pose for beautiful photos. So we're shooting with super long lenses, like our 400mm lens, okay? And I needed to be quick. And in post, as we're editing these photos, the ability to crop in is very, very helpful because I can take, you know, this big picture. We can actually show an example, the original photo of the puffin. Now we crop in, all of that detail is still available to us, and the photo still looks great, and now it looks a lot tighter, and I didn't have to buy an even bigger, more expensive lens, which is. Before we move on, I want to tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, and that's the Professional Photographers of America. If you're a photographer who does this for a living, then you need to join the over 30,000 other photographers in the PPA community. Some of my favorite features of PPA include equipment insurance of up to $15,000 and a low $50 flat deductible for equipment repairs, along with a $350 flat deductible for replacements. They also have data recovery services and some other super useful business resources, which I know a lot of you guys are looking for on this channel. That includes fully customizable contracts, model releases, proposals, and more. So whether you're new to your photography career or you're a seasoned professional, there are definitely some very helpful resources that PPA will offer for you. And if you use the link in this description below, you will save $25 off their full membership. Now back to the video. At this point, we're sitting with A7S III, A7R4. As you can see, I skipped one. So we also had a vlog camera. If you followed the vlogs in late 2019 and early into 2020, yes, the beginning of the pandemic, we took a break from those for obvious reasons. Those were all shot with the A6400 because I wanted a small, lightweight camera body, something easy to travel with, but I still wanted the ability to shoot 4K and et cetera, et cetera. Battery life on that wasn't ideal. And then when they came out with the A7C, it was essentially the A7 III, and we have a video on this that I'll link above. It's essentially the A7 III, but in a smaller, also more adorable body. Like, it looks a little big because of this lens on it. Do we have that little lens? Okay, I needed a setup for vlogging that was a little more run and gun. So look how tiny this gets now. And especially when you're vlogging, super small. It still has the exact same amount of megapixels as the A7 III, which is 24.2. Really the only difference is on the physical body itself. You're missing the D-pad, you're missing some of those physical components on the body that can make shooting a little bit faster for you. But if that doesn't matter, it's a cheaper A7 III essentially, and smaller. So that's why I love it. That's why it's in our kit. Obviously, when we were shooting puffins, this makes way more sense and I'm happy to have it. But as like a daily shooter, it's still kind of nice to have this for documenting the day. Let's just recap. This is the video beast. This is the photo beast. This is the vlog daily shooter, adorable little A7C. This is still great. It's basically the same as this, but in a bigger, heavier body, but with more buttons, D-pad, more physical components. Again, if you want to know exactly the difference, we have a video linked up here. And then this is your portable little amateur looking, but still effective run and gun camera. Do we take this out a lot? As I said, no, not really, but it is a nice to have. It's nice if you're traveling. If you're just getting into photography, you don't need interchangeable lenses. You want to shoot a little bit of video. You can have a lot of fun with this and it does look pretty darn good. Now, let's all have a moment of silence for the honorable camera body mentions. Let's talk about the ZV-E10. As you guys noticed in our wedding vlog, wedding video, whatever you want to call it. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a fun watch, would recommend it. Click up here. Sony worked with us on that video. They sent us the ZV-E10 to try out and shoot that video with, and honestly, I loved it. Because it has interchangeable lenses, however, it is still APS-C, it makes it a good camera to step up into if you want to be better at photography, you want to be better at video, you want to be shooting more. So I would recommend that camera. It comes in white. It was a great overall everyday vlogging camera. A couple of other cameras we got our hands on this year that we loved that we may or may not be picking up. I'm not gonna Chris and I are talking. This is an expensive hobby, okay? The A1 and the FX3. So the A1 has 50 megapixels. It shoots 8K at 30 frames per second, and it's $6,500 US. However, if you want a great camera for both photo and video, and I'm talking this is a great camera for both photo and video, the A7 III, but the A1 just takes it to a whole other level. I would put that over here in my lineup. Last but not least, let's take a moment of silence one last time for the FX3. It is essentially a more accessible filmmaking camera. And that would just go in front. It would just go right in the center and just ah. just take over, and then all of these would just like explode. And if you want to see a whole video we did on that, we talked about the specs, we talked about it in more detail, you can watch that up here as well. These are all my camera bodies. Thank you so much for joining me on this little tech show and tell with my stuff, with my favorite friends in the office here. Sorry, Josh. And if you like this video, please give it a like down below, subscribe if you're not already, and hit the notification bell to get notified for all future videos. And if you have one of these cameras, or you want to pick up one of these cameras, or you have any questions, don't feel scared, don't feel afraid, okay, to drop those in the comments. I don't know why it was so hard for me to get that sentence out. Thanks for being here. See you later. My legs are so sweaty. It's literally a river. Can you see how glistening it is or no? It's moist.